This panel is important to Meridian as it elevates the critical role played by local leaders, our mayors and governors in American diplomacy, and supporting them is a mission of Meridian's new Center for State and Local Diplomacy. So thank you, Mayor Bowser, Mayor Lucas, and Deputy Mayor Sidhu for being here with us. I have 3 questions that I'd like to pose to each of you, and then I've got something individual. Mayor Bowser, I'll start with you. Cities are increasingly acting as diplomatic players in their own right. How do global sporting events strengthen a city's ability to engage internationally, economically, culturally, and politically?
That's a great question, and it's my pleasure to be here. And we realized very early on in my tenure, I'm a 3-term mayor. I was sworn in 2015. And part of my charge at the time to my administration is that we would elevate DC locally, nationally, globally. We would engage with cities, sister cities, capital cities, cities that were similarly situated to us all around the world, and that we would be not just ambassadors for our own city, but for America. And so it was we had a big vision of ourselves and how we would engage in the world. Now, we also set out what our goals were. Our goals are to help our businesses do business around the world. Our goals were to share cultural experiences, but also for residents of Washington, especially our very large minority groups. We wanted to understand where they come from. And so I think in the course of my tenure, I've probably done 10 delegations around the world, from China, where we brought a lot of investment back, to Cuba when we could visit, to Israel, to Ethiopia, all over Europe we have been, and we have learned just a lot of good things, and our businesses have gotten business. Sport diplomacy, I think there's more that we can do. I have had the privilege of, and I think Zach was probably talking to you about their very good decision to keep their arena in Washington, D.C. And we're happy about that. It's a big project, but in addition to sport, in Monumental Sports, they bring in just talent from all over the world, so it's hugely important to what we do. I see Marjorie Harris here, and her family made the very good decision to bring the Washington Commanders back to Washington, and we're grateful for that. We, of course, have probably had the most international sporting events with our soccer stadium that I built in Washington in 2016, and it will help us be bigger players in women's soccer and in attracting the Women's World Cup in 2031 that we're very hopeful will go to at the new RFK Stadium. And our interactions with our own ambassadors here in Washington, D.C. Has been around sport, mostly soccer, and recently with the NFL's foray into with our global partnerships. Our team was able to play recently in Europe, and we're hopeful that they will continue to do that.
Great. Mayor Lucas, is it different for you being in the middle of the country? We talked in the green room about how cities are so increasingly important to individuals and to people, and how the Midwest plays such an important role in terms of uniting the coast. And so for global sports events, what's your point of view?
Well, first of all, thank you all for having me. It is always a treat to be with my friend Mayor Bowser and to be back here in the District of Columbia. I will say it is exactly the same for cities, and I would argue exactly the same for cities regardless of size. If you think about some of the brands that are associated with certain cities, sticking with an NFL example, I was just with Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, talking about the Chicago Bears, right? There are many great things about his city, many great brands, films, other things that tie to it. but sports is still that unifying, and I might add apolitical, largely, type of opportunity where we get to actually just share the brand of our community. I do think we have an outstanding opportunity to share the brand of our country. And more than anything, you have this wonderful template off which to work, where you get to show not just the physical experience for a tourist of your community, but you get to add to that the cultures, right? The music, so many other steps, the people that are part of it. And so what I suggest to any mayor and largely any leader, regardless of size, is think about how do you share the sports environment around you? How do you make sure that that is an integral part of what the brand of your community is? And having been on delegations over the years and others, whether I like it or not, right, you are known in many ways and defined by those cultural experiences you have. I'll give one example. I happened to be in Paris during the Rugby World Cup roughly 2 years ago. Wonderful event. Exciting, all of that. I got much better seats than I should have. And I was seated next to a diplomat from New Zealand. And this very nice woman said to me, Kansas City. And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, Taylor Swift, right? And I said, yes, yes. And then she added, well, she's dating a not very famous footballer, right? So he's famous to us, but I understand the balance. But you get a chance to have, right, these positive engagements. And I think that is such a key part to breaking down divides. And I will also say this about mayors is unique perhaps from other levels of government and other leaders. Right, our friends in the United States Congress and certainly our friends in the White House, right, have a different diplomatic relationship at times with any entity or country. We get the chance to sell the story of our community, of America in its broadest sense, without sometimes some of the responsibilities or liabilities of what our recent policy steps may be. And I think that gives us an exceptional opportunity to be great ambassadors.
Deputy Mayor Sidhu, both mayors have talked about the importance of neutrality and sort of being apolitical and the opportunity that cities allow. So this question for you, how have you witnessed the power of sports as a neutral platform for international engagement and cooperation when traditional diplomacy may be constrained?
It's such a relevant question in this moment, and I think that yes, absolutely, sports is a universal language. You don't need to speak the same language as your opponent, and yet you can share this amazing experience together in a given sport. And people watch sports from all around the world, and it brings people together, and it is this amazing camaraderie and universal shared experience. However, every major sports event takes place in a particular geopolitical context. And in LA in particular, talking about sort of Mayor Lucas's point on cities having different brands, LA is blessed that a lot of people around the world know about LA. We are storytellers, we export entertainment and stories around the world through our entertainment industry. And so people often have an idea about LA. And we've also hosted the Olympics twice before, and in 2028 we'll host for a third time. And in the first time we hosted the Olympics in 1932, it was in the middle of the Great Depression, and no one wanted to host the Olympics. But LA raised its hand and hosted, and kind of kept that Olympic movement alive even in a Great Depression. And then in 1984, we were in the middle of the Cold War. There were boycotts of the games. Yet still, we hosted the games, and it was the first games to be profitable. And we actually still have youth sports programs that are based on the profits from those 84 games. And so 2028 will be no different. I don't think it will be a neutral games. I think we're going to have to see what the domestic climate looks like, what the geopolitical climate looks like. If we look at the Tokyo Games, there was a global pandemic, and that city had to grapple with how do we, put on this world event and administer COVID protocols. And as recent as the Paris Games, we were dealing with shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine and sanctions and how to grapple with that. So I do think it's both. It's a universal, beautiful experience that all of us can enjoy together, but we will also see some really complicated geopolitics play on top of that. And to the point of what the mayor's made, the cities, and LA in particular, is really looking forward to demonstrating to the world that despite whatever is going on, that we have a story to tell, that we have values that we want to project to the world, and this is our moment to do that.
Mayor Bowser, what examples, when you think about witnessing the power of sports as a neutral platform for international engagement, as a native Washingtonian, I'm always been very proud of this city is 3 cities in one. It's DC. It is also the city that people come to make a change, but it's also the center of the global community. And so when you think about the power of sports as a neutral platform, what examples do you have in terms of cooperation when traditional diplomacy may be constrained?
Well, I think that part of the reason why we make the argument that cities are the natural place for important cultural and sporting convenings is because cities are recognized around the world as the place where these important conversations happen. And that's part of the pitch that I have made to DC residents and businesses in our efforts to brand Washington, DC as the sports capital. We want to be known around the world as the place where you come to get business done, you come to make important policies. And we have to work hard, unlike my friends here from Los Angeles, at making sure everybody knows you can also have fun. Right? And so it is obvious that when you go to an NBA game or NFL game or a soccer game, you're going to have fun. And so we have, and we're proud to be the nation's capital and the home of all of this political engagement, but sometimes that's not fun. And so we spend a lot of time also emphasizing the great cultural experiences that are here, from the theater to the night scene, into all of the embassies that are also here. And so we view the venues as important convening and meeting places. Our diplomatic community views them as such as well, because they have a lot of meetings when they are attracting business or they're trying to bring in people to talk about their nation's interests. They do it in these very neutral settings, and the sporting venues are perfect for those types of convenings, and they do have a natural neutrality because the fans are from everywhere. And the background of the fans is in the kind of the politics of everything is left at the door. But you have these oftentimes very regular, accessible seating experiences. And then you have other very private, exclusive arrangements where all manner of business can happen.
Mayor Lucas, sports are built on teamwork, but so are major sporting events. How does the spirit of collaboration in sports translate to the work cities must do with the private sector and other levels of government to deliver the transformative investments required by major sports events?
Well, I think there are a number of examples on that. I will use probably the most prominent one that I know you spent time discussing this afternoon, and that is the 2026 World Cup. And the collaboration with the business community has been one that has been existing really since I was first in public office in 2015. And I'll just give you a few of the steps along the way as illustrative of what folks have to do. The first thing you need to do is move beyond what is just either a mayor's dream or a team's dream. And the thing that was interesting for us, the father of our current NFL team owners, Lamar Hunt, during the 1994 World Cup said, "I really want matches in Kansas City." And I think at the time, everybody said, yeah, I don't have the hotels, you don't have the airport to make it work, you don't have so much of the kind of surrounding necessities to pull off a real bid like that. So for us, it really became, in many ways, dedicated public policy over years. My predecessor, a wonderful man, invested in more hotel rooms in the core of our city. We opened a new airport, largely brand new airport, but I can just say terminal, early in my term. You go through a lot of those steps. So that's just one. And that, of course, requires extensive collaboration. But then on the bidding itself, and I'll just give you kind of a look at a middle American town. So we're pitching the World Cup, right? And maybe you haven't been to Kansas City, although I'd argue if you've been to Cincinnati or Indianapolis or St. Louis or Minneapolis, you've been to a similar place, right? And so what I mean by that is we don't have every culture represented, although we have them. But when you're having a lot of folks who are coming from, let's say, a share of different European countries and others, people that are going to be asking you about what's your cuisine scene like, and you got to just make some stuff up, right? No, the idea is you lean on the people who have the experience doing it. And that is often folks who have been in your business community, those who have been in areas where they've been exposed to other parts of the world, who have been pitching our communities for years as well. Because if I look to corporate leadership in my community, we were talking about, I know I won't do sponsors, but H&R Block, right, is based, or Hallmark, I'll go with them more interestingly, right? A greeting card company, but they've sold them everywhere, and their media work, that's the sort of group that said, oh yeah, we've been trying to pull people here for 100 years. And we have figured out how to share what this city's about and how to go through those steps. So a responsible bid and responsible work that folks do together with a city, no matter the size, is that you are engaging a number of different industry sectors. I would argue that you're engaging different cultural sectors too. It can't just be the soccer fans and team owners and the mayor, or else everybody else is going to be like, no, we don't care. And so it is ensuring you go through those steps regularly, and importantly, as you get closer to pulling off the event, it is making sure that you go through those essential steps to make sure everybody can deliver. I have these nightmares sometimes that I'll have like 4,000 Argentina fans stranded at the airport at 2 a.m. or something and be like, oh, Lord Jesus, what are we going to do? But then I realize, right, transit companies, engineering firms, there are so many others that are a part of it. And that's actually how you pull these off beyond just the vision of one leader.
When that actually happens, remember you heard it here first. Deputy Mayor Sidhu, a specific question for you about Los Angeles. What lessons from other Olympic host cities are shaping LA 28's approach to delivering lasting infrastructure and community benefits, particularly around sustainability? And what advice would you offer to cities preparing for their first major global sports event?
For the latter part of that question, start preparing now. Like, don't wait. Prepare as early as possible. But, you know, we really benefited from Paris. And when the games were awarded to Paris and Los Angeles, they were announced together. So Paris got 2024 and LA got 2028. And so we've sort of been on the journey together and have been partnering and collaborating and sharing best practices and lessons learned all along the way, with a ton of credit to the mayor of Paris, Mayor Anne Hidalgo, who made her staff available to us all along the way. We sent a delegation to LA to watch the games, to see the back of the house, to be side by side with her team, to see how they pulled it off. And they set the bar really high. I think people wanted to doubt them, but they pulled off an incredible Olympics. And even to this day, you know, just yesterday I was emailing my counterpart in Paris, and that is the level of collaboration. And I think they have really set the mark for how do you be a responsible, good steward and host of the games, and how can you help cities along the way as well. And so we've started taking Paris's lead. We've already started working with Brisbane, which is going to be the host of the following Summer Games. And so we're going to be signing an MOU with Brisbane later this year to really codify the fact that we want to support them. I think we're different, obviously, in LA, because part of our sustainability angle was that we are essentially a no-build game. That we are not building new venues. We have world-class state-of-the-art facilities already because we host a lot of things on the regular. And so that is part of our plan, is to say, how do you use existing infrastructure so that you are not, you know, having your taxpayers have to pay, or creating a lot of construction sites before a game, which actually drives tourism down right before you host a major event. And so we have been working with Paris. We also have a partnership with the city of Oklahoma City, which is going to be hosting 2 of the games because we recognized that they had better facilities. So instead of trying to build those facilities in our city, we said, why don't we sign an MOU with Oklahoma City and have them host those 2 venues, which helps share the economic prosperity that we hope to see with the games. For LA 28, it's projected to bring about $18 billion of economic activity to LA, and so it's great that we're able to share that with the city of Oklahoma City. And so, partnership, it's a team sport. Planning early is really the advice I would give.
It's exciting. Mayor Lucas, in 2026, the U.S. marks America 250. Yep. At the same time, it hosts the FIFA World Cup. What role do cities have in shaping how the world experiences the country during a year that combines historic commemoration with one of the world's largest sporting events? And how is Kansas City specifically approaching this moment to convert global visibility into lasting local impact?
I think I take that a few ways. The first is that cities are how people interact with our country broadly. And don't get me wrong, I live in Middle America. I love the prairie and long drives. And, I've driven from D.C. to Kansas City. It joined me sometime, about 17 hours. But what people will come here and see and experience is what is happening when they are at the America 250 match. I believe that'll be in Philadelphia on the 4th of July. What they will see is what they're experiencing in all of our communities. And in many ways, for us, what we're trying to build out is how do we build that positive experience from the time they are landing at the airport, frankly, even before that, but from their time there to how they engage with the city entirely. And I think that is going to be such a key and essential part to how we deliver what could be best for this experience. But, I will say this about the World Cup and America 250 more broadly. I think to points that have been raised already, America can represent a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But to the mayor's point from before, we get to actually sell and share our joy, our collaboration, our diversity, fundamentally. The people who stop me in my city who are the happiest about the World Cup aren't people who've been in Kansas City and their families for 200 years. It's folks who are saying, yeah, my friends from Algeria are excited that we'll be here. It's Ecuadorians, it's others. So we get to share the best of all of that. And I think that's how that's lasted. And then one other point. Los Angeles has been important and powerful and wonderful for years. But in many ways, our model is Atlanta's 1996 Olympics. Because although Atlanta's always been a wonderful city, wonderful culture, you look at how they took the 96 Olympics and from there have just been in the center of global discussions in so many ways. Always had good companies, always a good place, but never turned back, never looked back to being something exceptional. That is what every city has an opportunity to do with major events.
It's a great point. Mayor Bowser, D.C. is entering a new chapter with major infrastructure and sports investments, from preparations tied to the 2027 NFL draft to the project for the new football stadium, which you've mentioned. How is your administration leveraging these opportunities as a platform for international partnerships, city branding, and economic development?
That's a great question, because we're always in the list that I gave earlier of international travel that I do. I failed to mention that I'm frequently in back-to-back meetings, and those meetings are selling Washington, and we have an economic development packet that we talk about, and we're always talking about opportunities. And whether it's on the parcels now that will be activated at RFK or Walter Reed, or how we're going to repurpose federal buildings in our monumental core, there is a lot of opportunity in Washington. And what we're asking people is to be really creative. We have a beautiful city built on L'Enfant's plan that is filled with monuments, memorials, but also federal buildings that were created for two purposes: for federal workers and to show the might of America's democracy. That's why they're there. But right now, they're largely empty, many of them. And so we are envisioning what to do with them. And so why can't we have different sporting uses? Why can't we do centers that are focused on women's sports and, and how we can stay healthier in sport, how we can use technology and train children who are interested in being in these businesses. So we're always looking for ways to attract capital and investment in Washington. The other thing that people haven't thought of us as is a technology center. Those are the West Coast has always been where all the technologists are and all the technology investment. But we have a huge technology talent in DC. One thing that the federal government has created is a lot of experienced technologists, and many of them are looking for their next thing. And we are finally seeing a wave of investment, whether it's related to finance or how AI is advancing in various industries. A lot of that work in energy is now in DC. So I do see a lot of synergies between the economic development work that we do in the city that goes with sport, that goes with industry associated with sport, and attracting business. You mentioned the NFL draft. We have participated in a lot of bids. I liked how the mayor talked about these bids, and you all probably know about all of this. And we spend a lot of money to get involved. We've won some, we've lost some. We had the MLB All-Star Game. We did the MLS All-Star Game, and everybody says they just enjoyed the experience so much. Now I think these are the games we were trying to get, the 28 games. That's okay, we're trying to get that. I think this was the one with Boston first, and then, these were our games, so we were trying to get these games. What was the other one? We're trying to get the gay games, and that's another one that we're going to go back for. But part of, and I like what the deputy mayor said about this no-build approach, in doing these bids, sometimes it just gives you the opportunity to see where you have gaps in your ecosystem. And so whether you win or not, you learn something for the next thing, whether it's in sport or it's in something else. And this was back in 2015, where we did the Olympic bid, and we found out where we had a lot of gaps, whether it was in venues, one we're going to fill with the RFK Stadium, but in hotels, and not just numbers of rooms, but how many across the spectrum that we needed to fill, transportation gaps, what you need to do with those gaps. And another one that we didn't mention that is sometimes hard to deliver when you're talking about political lines, and that is regional cooperation. Because all of us sit in the center of bigger regions. There are different venues all over those regions, different transportation. And how can we be cooperative regionally? I love what the deputy mayor said about working with another city even, because with how things are streamed and broadcast, that's all possible because some of these events become TV events. And so I love the how cities can find lanes of cooperation. Frequently, we're competing with each other, but increasingly, as a city, as we work with industry, as we work with the different leagues, we're more powerful if we stick together. So I love that as an option for cooperation.
I know we're over, but my favorite question is last, so I'm going to take it. In one word, when the cameras are are shut down and when the games are over and everyone is left, in each of your communities, what do you hope that people felt? Just one word. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. I want them to feel proud. I want them to feel proud of their city, of how their city showed up in the world.
Great.
Next, I want them to plan for what's next for our community.
Opportunity and access, that they felt that they could access the games and that they were part of it, but also that hosting it provided enduring opportunity for everyone in the community.
I think they were outstanding. Thank you.